You were born in 1922.
Yes, in December 20th, 1922.
And this is during the
There was
Depression?
11 days left of 1922. Now, that changed my life because when I told people I was born in 22, they always consider I'm a year older. I think myself as born in 23, see. But I started school at 4 years old, grade school.
Grade school at 4-year-olds?
I graduated 8th grade out of grade school and went to high school at 12 years old.
What's crazy is can you tell the story of like you lived on a farm a majority of your life before joining the military, correct, sir?
I joined the National Guard in 1938.
And at what age?
I was 15 years old.
He was 15 when he joined, and that was, you lied about your age?
Only 3 years.
I love it. Now, with when you were a child, one of the stories you're telling, and you were 9 years old for this, but you were selling a cow during a blizzard?
Yes.
A 9-year-old.
We had a farm. I was born and raised on a farm. No electricity, no running water. Had to go to a pump by hand. And we milked 30 cows by hand every morning and night, and carrying a lantern to the barn and moving the lantern up and hanging it above as you milk the cows. Well, if a cow that can't get with calf, she doesn't milk. So in the middle of December, when I was 9 years old, this cow, we had to haul in a sleigh 6 miles, and the cattle buyer there weighed that cow. She weighed 700 pounds. I don't know how it came out exactly 700, but it did. It did come out 700 pounds. I ask you, what do you think we got for that cow? We got $7. That was Depression.
$1 per 100 pounds?
One cent a pound.
Wow.
1 cent a pound.
So when I got a chance to go to high school, after I graduated eighth grade, the teacher, Mrs. Jeffrey, stuck a little note in my pocket. She says, give this to your mother and dad. So, of course, I had to read that sucker before I got home. And it says, Mr. and Mrs. Larson, I suggest you give Jake a chance to go to high school. He's a fast learner. Well, my dad read that. He says, be no high school for you. He says, I got you to do the chores. I'm from a family of 8. I'm number 7. There's 4 older boys than me. My oldest brother, 16 years older than me, left home when he was 18, so I hardly knew him as a brother. Next is Earl, 14 years older than me. He's a horseman. We had 30 horses. He broke the horses. They were off of the prairie, wild horses. He broke them, shoot them, train them to pull implements. So when my dad said, there'll be no high school for you, you got chores to do, I forgot about high school all that summer. And then the high school sent out a notice, 2 weeks to register for high school. Earl, 14 years older than me, never entered the cow barn before. He always did the horses. He stepped up and said, if you let Jake go to high school, I'll do his chores for him. I'm here, courtesy my brother Earl.
That's an amazing brother right
You
there.
know, he stepped up for you.
Just so you could go to school. That's awesome.
I got happy tears. I know he's here today.
The amount of stories that you have throughout your life, which do, even from your wife, and we'll get into that. It's those things that, like, where his brother did something, or how you met your wife. All these little stories tie in your life to being the luckiest man ever. It's a beautiful story. And then what was one when you had your family, you were doing high school, and then you were at 15 years old. What were you doing leading up to, like, hey, I want to join the National Guard or the military? There was you and your
I
buddy.
never told my folks about that. Holy man. I got to lead up to that.
Lead away, sir.
Anyway, I started driving 14 miles into Owatonna in the fall. And then winter came. And winter in Minnesota was snow. No wheel things got through. They took the box off the wagon and put it on sleigh runners. And that's how we'd get to Hope. It was 2 miles to Hope where our mailbox was.
For your mailbox was 2 miles away?
And I had to stop driving because there weren't no snowplows at that time. So my dad got together with a former neighbor that had moved into Owatonna and bartered for my room and board. When I say depression, it was depression. I was starting their high school, and I made friends already. And my dad came to me, and after 2 months, he says, "You're going to have to quit high school. I can't afford to pay for your room and board." I says, "What are you paying for my room and board?" He says, "A dozen eggs and a pound of butter a month." Eggs were 1 cent apiece. Butter was 36 cents a pound.
Jake, I have a question for you during that time. What were you eating during that time? What was the meal that you would have every day?
Oh, they fed us meals. We had cornbread and home-baked bread. People weren't buying things from the store. Hell, a loaf of bread at that time cost 10 cents. That's 10 eggs.
And then what was your
While I was going to high school, my dad was paying off the farm, 160 acres. And he couldn't come up with the payment. And they were going to foreclose. President Roosevelt signed that Land Act. And Bloomin' Prairie, Minnesota, was 18 miles from my home. I remember my parents going there and getting a loan and paying off that loan. It was for $500. It was like $5 million now. But he saved the farm. But my dad was a bootlegger. He made his own whiskey. He'd sell a pint of a whiskey, 86 proof, for $1, and a half a pint for 50 cents.
We would have been good friends with
He
your dad.
didn't make a tremendous amount of money, but it helped.
It sounds like
And
Dad
then-
was really cool.
And then one of his best friends turned him in because the feds offered him $5 to point out whoever was bootlegging.
Snitch.
So my dad spent 6 months in Austin, Minnesota jail. While he was in jail, my mother said, this is our 25th years of marriage. So she made an angel food cake. And my brother Leo, who's 10 years older than me, I was 8 at that time, he drove our Jewett sedan to Austin, 35 miles. And he was 8-foot highways, cement highways there between. And he says, look, Ma, we're doing a mile a minute. That was one of the highlights of my career, man, going that fast.
It's 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Did you ever help your dad out with the distilling the whiskey? Like working the stills?
He didn't allow anybody to mess with it. That was his own thing.
Can you
But
tell
my
us?
brother Leo would put a cup under the drip of the alcohol in there. That's nearly 200 proof that comes out of there. And he'd put it in his own bottle and hide it in a stump someplace. Yeah.
Good old stump whiskey, right?
Yeah.
Your brother was ahead of the time.